Hello, STC artists. Mr. Kushla here. I thought I'd take a few minutes right now to introduce the next project for class and explain what it is that you're going to have to do. This next project is what I'm calling the Shadow Photography Challenge. This week, I'm going to get into things like how to use your cell phone camera, how to edit your photos to make them look more artsy and dramatic. As we work through this unit, I want you guys to really think about how artists use light and shadow to create drama in a photograph. It could be a dramatic still life, it could be a dramatic portrait, but how do they use and manipulate light and shadow to create drama? So the challenge, you are going to have to create 10 different photographs of unusual shadows found around your house. You're going to actually have to think about, you may not, the whole idea of 10 is that some of these may be found shadows, others may be created shadows. So with that, the things that you're going to need for this challenge, you're going to need things to photograph. Choose objects, people, pets are okay, that have unusual shapes or things that have hollow openings. So I just went into my kitchen and I kind of found a few cool things that have bizarre shapes, but the key is that it also has hollow openings. Some spatula, anything that has a hollow opening would be make a cool shadow. I'll show you some examples of things like this glasses with water in it might create a cool shadow with some window light. Other things you're going to need, excuse me, is a desk lamp. If you don't have a desk lamp, any sort of house lamp will do. You can unscrew, ask your parents for help with this, but unscrew the shade and take it off. That would give you a little harsher or harder shadow. The shade, the whole purpose of the shade is to soften the light coming out of the lamp. And you actually want, in this project, you're going to want a little harder shadow or a little bit more directional light. And the other thing you're going to need is obviously a camera phone to take your pictures with. If you have a digital SLR or mirrorless camera, you can use that, but you should just be fine with your iPhone, Android, whatever camera phone you have. Other optional things that I'll kind of get into as we work, are things like a pasta strainer, a flashlight, a candle, or a poster board or bed sheet. I'll explain what these things might be used for as optional additions to this project. So the procedure, once you've gathered your objects, or you could just work one at a time, photograph one object, put it back, it's fine. You're going to have 7 days to complete this project. Uh, think about using your desk lamp or your window to create a home studio. I said the bed sheet or poster board was optional. This will come in handy if you have like a messy background. The poster board or the white piece of paper or the clean bed sheet might help to create a simple, solid background like this photograph here on the right of this chess piece. Uh, as you're taking your photograph, think about moving the light around. Is it off to the side? Is it up above? The lower your light is, the longer your shadow is going to be. You are actually looking for more dramatic shadows in this project. So ways to create more dramatic shadows would be to bring the light bulb pretty close to your object. So in this example here of this chess piece, the light is probably just off the side of this picture. It's not really far away, because that's how you get that nice hard shadow. If you go underneath your subject, you'll end up with this kind of like spooky horror lighting, which could make a very interesting effect if that's what you're going for. If you're trying to create a like creepy portrait of your cat and make it look all scary, you could try and light it underneath if you can get your cat to sit still for long enough to photograph. So some tips and tricks, because I did this project myself last week. Some tips and tricks that I learned as I was doing this at home. The number one thing, Try to photograph your object from a few different angles to get the best composition. So you may know, I really want to photograph this whisk, but try a few different angles. Move the light around, move your camera around, get closer, put something behind it. Think about placing it in a few different settings until you find the best composition. I can tell you right now, getting close for this project is going to help you create these more interesting abstract images as opposed to being further away. The other thing that you're going to have to really work on and practice during this project is manually adjusting the focus and especially the exposure settings in your camera. So with that, like if I'm pointing my camera at a bright window or window light, the natural thing that it's going to want to do is do something like this, where it's going to expose for these shadows here. And then what's going to end up happening is your window light is going to get what they call blown out. It's going to be overexposed. That is actually not what you want for this project. So to get that window light to still look sharp and your shadows to be nice and dark and dramatic, what you actually have to do in your phone is literally press on the area in the highlight that you want exposed, and that will move the focus and the exposure down to the area that you want to expose, or that you want to be in properly exposed. Therefore, the shadows will get a little darker, everything will get a little darker. If you're like an expert at exposure and you're like, I know that's simple, you can also adjust these manually by pressing in iPhone, it's the little sun icon that you can adjust up or down. In Android, it's the light bulb icon that you can swipe side to side to make it brighter or darker. But the goal is that you want information, you want detail in your highlights and and not as much in the shadows. You want those shadows to be really dark. Other tips, especially when working with window light. You want to look for times of day when the light is directly coming through the window. Depending on which direction the window is facing, that might be in the afternoon, it might be in the early morning. Hopefully, you have some afternoon light in your apartment. If you do not, you can do this whole project using just lamps and light bulbs around your house. Other tips. I said the pasta strainer was helpful. The pasta strainer can be used. This picture here on the right is just using this spaghetti strainer and window light coming in from the afternoon. The photographer held up the pasta strainer with one hand and his camera in the other, and moving that strainer around. You do have to get the strainer pretty close to get a nice polka dot look. So if you are going to use the strainer, think about moving it pretty close to your subject. But the key is, like for instance, this guy here on the left, it's close, but it's still cut out of the picture. You can't see it. It's like just right outside the frame. This was an example that I did in my house using the spaghetti strainer, and you can see it kind of creates like a cool speckly nighttime look. So then these are just a few other examples that I created in my apartment when I was doing this project last week. When you're working, remember you're going to need 10 different photographs of a variety of subjects. So try to, as you're looking at these examples, think about ways that you can move the light around to create some variety and get some different weird angles. This again brings up that point of zooming in, getting close to your subject. In all of the examples I show here, there's always some close cropping, which means, for example, in this vase, I don't have the whole vase. The emphasis is on the shadow, not the vase. So the vase is just a secondary feature. The image on the right was created using that spaghetti strainer. The image on the left is some early morning light coming through the window. Here's that same early morning light, and then this is literally just a lamp. I will get into how you're going to edit and change and modify these pictures. Probably put out a second video on that tomorrow. But for now, you can just be thinking about going and photographing and finding some weird subjects to light. Excellent example on the left. I'm bragging here of flexing my artistic muscles of finding something that has some transparency, some hollow opening, so you can really see how that mesh makes a really interesting backdrop or makes a really interesting shadow when the light comes through it. So again, and just in closing, the goal for this week is that you're creating 10 different photographs and that each photo has some dark shadows and some bright highlights. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out over Google Classroom or email. I will get it. When you have all 10 of your photographs, please attach them to this assignment and submit them through Google Classroom. That's it for me. I hope everybody's safe and well. Have a great day.